Well, hello and welcome to Click Spotlight. My name's John Sands. This is Click Spotlight at Qonnections 2019 in Dallas. And I had the very great pleasure of having in front of me Itamar Ankorion. Welcome, Itamar.
Thank you very much, John. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. And the whole Attunity family is, I've been speaking to people on the expo floor, and it is truly great to have Attunity on board now. So with the transition then, what do I call you?
Well, a good question. I'm now about a week at Click, and it's been a very exciting week. And by the way, great event out here. So now as part of the Click family, I'm a Senior VP and the Managing Director for Enterprise Data Integration at Click, which simply means I'm basically responsible for the Attunity business line, which came through the acquisition. And before that, again, about a week ago, I was an executive with Attunity, been there for quite many years. And I had the pleasure of really doing the very different roles, from leading product management, product marketing, to
so all at Attunity. You've done
all within Attunity, alliances, business development, and corporate development. And recently, I was a Chief Marketing Officer.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Attunity for?
I've been at Attunity for over 15 years, so quite a lot of my career, and it's been a lot of fun taking the company through different stages in its life, and especially the last 10 years, really started the company, bring it back into the data integration space with a big focus on real-time data integration, bring to market Attunity Replicate, which today became the flagship product, recognized as a leader product in data replication, and then expanding beyond that to a broader spectrum of data integration capabilities.
Yeah, I was speaking to Sammy earlier, and he was saying 17 years he'd been at Attunity. And that's, I've been at Click for 12 years, and I thought that was a long time. Now I'm a newbie from that. But it shows, actually, you don't stay around for that long unless it's a good place to be. You truly don't.
Great group of people, great team, very good professionals, a lot of expertise in data integration and the different systems that we work with. And a good team to work with. So it's been fun.
So for those of people that don't know, what space do Attunity exist in then?
So Attunity is in the data integration space. It's a pretty recognized market. Gartner, for example, has their Magic Quadrant for data integration tools, and other analysts, of course, recognize it as well. So Attunity has been in the data integration market for a very long time, well before I joined it, since the 90s. And really had software for different types of data integration requirements, starting with data connectivity and data federation, which is all about getting access to data wherever data is, and then moving into parts of data integration that deal with moving data from place to place. So not so much connecting to the data as much as moving it around. And that's where we introduced our change data capture technology, and then kind of started to move upstream from having Attunity Replicate, which channels the end-to-end database replication, and we introduced that to market in 2011. Since that, it evolved, and then we evolved into broader parts of data integration, such as data transformation and data warehouse automation, big data integration, cloud data integration to get data to the cloud. So Attunity today offers a much broader set of data integration capabilities.
We hear there is so much data, and the phrase I use is data everywhere, but not a drop to drink, because people hoard data, people gather data, and the analogy I use is all around, I have a drawer at home that anything I think I might need tomorrow, like old keys, batteries that may still have a little bit of charge in them, IKEA screws that are left over from when I make a piece of furniture, they all go in there. Because I'm worried if I jump the way, I'm going to need them tomorrow. And my feeling is that companies have the same feeling about data. So they just keep it because they don't truly understand what it is. Now, do you feel that is that a common mistake when people are looking at their data strategy and how they're going to deal with all this? We get so much now.
Well, it's a really good question that you raised. And I think it has a lot to do with the world of big data. The technologies, first of all, we live in an age where there's so much more that we can store. So there's only so much stuff you'll put in the drawer. But when you think about the amount of data that's generated, especially with more of the world becoming digitized, and there's so many more sources of information. Also ourselves, we're generating data all the time. So the amounts of data that are being generated and therefore may be useful to store somewhere are just growing in exponential rates. At the same time, there are technologies that allow to store that in a more economic fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, if you had to buy a drawer every day, that'd be an issue, right?
Yeah.
But right now, since we've seen the rise of Hadoop and HDFS as a way to store large amounts of data, and today with cloud object stores becoming a more common, lower cost, basically, way economic, elastic way to store a lot of data, companies use that in order to store a lot of data. The other thing that goes with it is, it goes back to your question, I think companies see the potential to use data in a lot of different ways, some of which they realize they may not have figured out yet. And therefore, they say, well, at least I don't lose the data. And as long as it's economic to keep the data, and it's more raw form even, right? Let's keep it. Let's make sure we don't lose it in case we need it later. And I think that because of that, you're seeing companies, resort to keep a lot of data. And we see that in the growth of data, predominantly data lakes, because those become the repositories for these really large sets of data.
So a big theme across the conference is data literacy and understanding. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the draw, about people maybe not fully thinking, yes, save it, and they can economically now. It doesn't cost them much to do it, as you said. But do they truly understand? And I think you mentioned that in your last statement, is whether they truly understand whether they're going to need it now because they're not literate enough on that data. Do you see that yourself?
We do. Actually, it's interesting. We see, especially with data lakes, we see companies taking two very distinct type of approaches to building lakes. In one case, it's a very infrastructural type of a construct. They're saying, okay, let's build a lake. And that's what also common when customers have a shared services organization. They're going to build a lake, and then they're going to enable other people, other business groups to come and drink from the lake, right? Or come and get the data they need out of the lake. But in that context, many times they are not aware of the specific ways people will want to use the data. But it tends to be very big infrastructural approaches to building it. And it's kind of a build it and they will come kind of an approach. And it's one approach. The other one is when there's a very specific application. There's a very specific analytic need. For example, we want to do predictive analytics in order to reduce the faults and maintenance costs of automobiles. Okay? So I have a very specific type of question I'm trying to answer. It's going to require a lot of data. I'm going to get data, and this is some of what some of our customers do from the cars. And I'm actually going to take data from all the manufacturing facilities, which are hundreds of data sources. I'm going to put them all together, and I'm going to be building these machine learning and other models that will allow me to predict when failures might happen. And then maybe I can avoid a very costly recall, for example, right? So, but in that case, there's a very specific application. And in that case, you see, of course, more thought about, okay, where does the data need to get to so the people who need to ride the machine learning process can actually do that, okay? So we're seeing both things, but expanding on it to your point, we have seen customers that focused initially only on the process of getting data to the lake. And that has been where Attunity is focused initially, because that's what the market was going. And we've provided the market with a great way to get data to the lake. With our technology, we can help companies scale how many feeds they bring to the lake, do it at significantly less cost and more efficiency, and also do it in real time. And we have customers that feed today hundreds and some even thousands of feeds into the data lake. And while we've done that and it was great, we had the customers who came back and said, listen, it's really great that you help us get the data there. But what we get is really raw data. Especially when you're doing streaming data, the data is pretty raw. You actually see like a representation of data that is a set of changes over time. It's like an audit of the data. And that format of data is not really usable, okay, for consumers who may be using tools like ClickSense, for example, that want to access the data. So can you help us? Because from the raw data, to bring the data to be ready for analytics, we need to spend a lot of time with development resources. Can you help us? So we went back and we thought what we could do, and we created automation around that. So we created innovation that allows to automate the process of taking the raw data that arrived at the lake and transforming it, shaping it, producing out of it analytic-ready data sets. So things like an operational data store, an historical data store. And that really allows not just to scale the amount of data that comes in, but also to accelerate the production of analytic-ready data sets out of it, supporting literacy and accelerating time to value.
You understand, and you can work with, analyze, and argue with that data. So I've looked at some of your interviews on YouTube and on the internet, and you talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and I think it's a subject you have a bit of a passion for. Right. How do you see this field evolving? Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, fast.
Fast, yes.
I think the artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, they're all kind of tied together. They're growing really fast. We're seeing it both with what our customers are trying to do. We're seeing it with the introduction of new tools, new technologies, new platforms for doing machine learning and AI. We're seeing, by the way, a lot of growth in the cloud as a platform for doing it because of the inherent agility and elasticity that at least exists there. And I think one of the things that is indicating the growth in AI is also the introduction of tools in the markets that help people which are less skilled to be able to produce.
So not having to be a data scientist.
Exactly, because creating machine learning and artificial intelligence is hard. It's not trivial, which means that you have few data scientists or rocket scientists who can actually do it. And while it's great, it's not scalable. And if you want to apply it, so that's where you see other companies that provide software.
So the democratization of it, giving it available to lots of people. It's
exactly that. But the other point about it, this is where Attunity is at the benefit of working with customers, is that there's a fundamental difference with AI and machine learning compared to more traditional, say, data warehousing, which is the whole idea of machine learning is that the more data you feed it, the smarter it may become, right? Because when you're doing machine learning, you want to have the machine try to figure out correlations in the data that you couldn't figure out. That's the whole point of doing machine learning or intelligence. You want it to learn. Now, the more data we give it, the more it will learn. And that comes back to a data integration challenge, because now the point is you need to scale. Yeah. And actually, one of the biggest barriers to implementing machine learning AI, besides the skill that we talked about before, is having the data. Because if I want to do machine learning in the cloud, that's great. And some of our customers, for example, an example of manufacturing customers that make medical devices, and they wanted to use machine learning to identify and optimize patterns in their production lines. Yeah. Well, that's all very nice. They want to use Azure in their case, and Azure ML Studio and those environments. But the data is coming from the shop floors. It's coming from the production facilities. And until the data is available, and if you can correlate, then they can't do any machine learning. So again, that's where we come in, helping them to scale and accelerate that process. So part of the vision, the mission that we see for what the Attunity product did, now becoming Qlik data integration platform, is to enable and accelerate the availability of data in the cloud and for analytics. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And if today you see a lot of customers that spend 80% of the time just getting the data, and then maybe they have 20% of the time to actually do something with it, we want to try and help customers actually flip that around, right? So that's the whole idea.
So would you say that was Attunity's secret sauce then? Is that it, or is there much more behind that? So and also value prop as well, obviously very important.
Yeah. So I think the reason Attunity was very successful in the market, recognized as a leader, growing very quickly in the last couple of years, is because we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And part of it is a really critical market need, combined basically with a very unique value proposition that we delivered, and then very strong partnerships that we have created, strategic partnerships with the data platforms, the new data platforms, the Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, new companies like Snowflake, Databricks, Cloudera, of course.
You hear Snowflake more and more. I must admit, I don't think I'd ever heard of it about a month ago, but now it's starting
to everywhere. It's everywhere. So the point is, everybody wants to use these new data platforms. So you got to get the data there, and each one of them, the data needs to look maybe a little differently, and that's part of what Attunity enables. So going back to what's kind of our secret sauce, and you'll hear us talk about modern data integration, and it may beg the question: so what's modern about it, right? And what we try to explain is that when data integration has been around for a very long time, but there are two fundamental capabilities that we believe are at the heart of modernization. And very much like you're modernizing your analytics with advanced analytics, you're modernizing your data platforms with cloud, a new type of data warehousing, a new type of platforms to analyze the data, you also need to modernize data integration. And the two fundamental differences where traditional tools really fail in a couple of areas. They fail in scale, they fail in latency, delivering real-time data, right? It's a big one. They fail with efficiency, of moving data. And that's predominantly because they move data in batch all the time, and it's highly inefficient. And agility, okay, because they're not agile, they're very development-centric. And what we've done, we've recognized this a few years ago, and we spent a lot of time and effort to create innovation that today became that secret sauce we're talking about. And there's really the two things. One is moving from batch to real time. So one part of the secret sauce is batch to real time, and what's behind it is a very unique technology called change data capture, or CDC.
Yes.
And what CDC is all about, it's about, instead of doing a batch, instead of reloading data all the time, it allows you to identify only the delta. So it's all about the delta. And if you have a way to capture only the delta, right, then you can be personally real time. As it changes, you can do something with it. You can be very efficient because you're moving a fraction of the data. Right? So there's a lot of value, and you can scale. Right? If some of our customers move continuously, for example, some of them move over 200 billion changes on a continuous basis. If they weren't moving only the changes, they wouldn't be doing it. Economically, they just wouldn't be doing this, right? So the ability to work on a delta is a fundamentally different approach to data integration. And Attunity has been a pioneer in CDC technology. We provide we believe we're the #1 provider of change data capture technology. Enterprise grade, high performance, supported on a lot of different platforms, and that's part of the secret sauce. And as part of it, by the way, not only does it capture and move the data, it also knows how to capture and move and process changes to the metadata or to the schema. And that's a huge issue for customers, especially as they scale, because the structure of your data source changes. And as it changes, traditional data integration processes break. Because, there's a new table, there's a new column, they break. Attunity, because that technology, because we can identify the changes in the schema, we can also process them automatically. So we have a way to autonomously adapt to those changes. And that's a huge differentiation.
I can see that.
The second part is around automation. So the other part of the secret sauce is taking patterns of workloads in data integration that have traditionally been in the realm of the developer. It required somebody to develop software, takes traditional waterfall kind of process, takes a long time, and basically automating it. So basically you can have a user with a significantly reduced skill set be able to take a piece of software, touch a few knobs, configure a few things, and then the system will generate the data integration application or process for them. And that really dramatically changes the economics of doing data integration, and the combination of how you move the data and how you actually implement it, makes a huge difference. That's where the modernization is coming from, and that addresses the need for real-time data, for efficiency, for scale, and for agility. Excellent. So that's the secret sauce.
So I'm convinced, but why are Qlik and Attunity a good fit then? What makes that
Well, first of all, clearly Qlik thought it was a very good idea, and so did we. And the reason is that there's a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm excited that you can hear how serious Qlik is about data integration. So first of all, it's already shows why there's value, because first Qlik is serious about it. And data integration and data analytics go hand in hand. They're very complementary. So first of all, we think it makes a lot of sense because even the integration between the Attunity product line and the Qlik Data Catalyst that Qlik acquired a few months ago, they make a really strong connection. Together, they provide one of the broadest and most innovative data integration platforms in the market that enable customers to capture data, deliver data to wherever they want, refine the data, then prepare the data, and finally put it in a catalog so people can easily find it. And in each one of these capabilities, a lot of innovation. Right? So like we talked about, if you capture it, it's how you capture it, right? We change the capture. If you're delivering it, it's a lot of automation. Refining it with all the automation I talked about, and then everything that QDC brings to the table with its very unique offering. So it's exciting because a lot of that value. But beyond that, and it's important to know that, again, the data integration is independent, which is really important. And again, Qlik is serious about it and is serious about keeping it independent, which is, I think, very important. That's why I thought Qlik was also a good match, because to continue the success and bring all this value to a lot of customers, I think it's important to keep it independent. However, beyond that, I think Qlik, together now with all the data integration capabilities, have a lot of synergy to really answer the complete supply chain of data, from raw, as we kind of think about it, all the way to the analytic application and the user. And I think that's going to make a huge difference for driving literacy, because we're going to create agility and really accelerate the time. We call it data ops for analytics, of how quickly you can get data to analytics and how quickly you can iterate, because business requirements change all the time, the data changes all the time. So really help companies iterate. And if you have better access to the data, better applications, you'll become more literate. So I think it's a great match.
Excellent. So I love your passion. I love the knowledge you have about what you're talking about. I think it's fantastic. And that's you as an Attunity person. So what I'd like to do now is just learn more about you as a person. Okay. So how do you wind down? I mean, because there needs to, you can't be constantly like this, can you? There needs to be a break at some point where you kind of go, so what does that for Itamar? How do you
wind down? Do I? I'm not sure. I need to ask my wife. I'm not sure she'd agree, but well, I love spending time with the family. I got 2 kids. My wife got a great, cute dog, and we love spending time together. So I really enjoy it. It's mostly on the weekends, but I enjoy spending time with the family. Try to find shows that I can watch with my son.
What kind of shows would you go and see?
I'm a sci-fi buff, so I enjoy it. So I love comedies, I love sci-fi. So we find things we can watch, and it's fun to just watch together. So if I can do it on weekdays, it's great, and it's a way to a little bit wind down, watch together, talk about it, or over the weekend. I've been trying to bring sports back into my life as another way.
Did you have sports before then? Is there any particular sport you still like?
A few years ago, and the last few years have been harder to find the time, also by traveling, but it's mostly a good excuse.
Yes.
And I find it when I find the time and I either go for a run or do other type of sports, it's a great way to wind down and have the time.
Yeah, and it is good for you to do that, isn't it? To get those endorphins going and get the heart going. It's got to be good for you. So what's on your iPod then? What do you or any other music player that you have?
iPhone, I guess iPhone actually.
Yeah.
Interesting question. I mean, I love listening to music, but funny you should ask. So it's so recently I actually downloaded this playlist. It may sound a little funny, but again, I mentioned I like sci-fi, and it's a playlist from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, really?
It's just
there's some good
funny
music
movie.
in that
Exactly.
film. Yeah.
So again, I grew up in the 80s, and in the movie they have like these collections of songs from the 80s. And what I loved about it, beyond the fact that he really selected...
He has a tape player, he has a cassette player, doesn't
cassette
he?
player. I had to explain to my son what a cassette player is. They don't get it, right? But besides, I think they really selected really a great playlist. But what I loved about it, for those who had a chance to see the movie, I think they very brilliantly put certain songs with certain scenes.
Yeah. And, so it remind you of that scene when
you hear the music, and when you watch it, they put, for example, "Come a Little Bit Closer," which is this really cool song, and they put it in this incredible fight scene. It's like, how did they go together? But it's brilliant. So when you listen to it and you kind of think about the scene from the movie, it's a lot of fun.
I haven't seen the second one yet, so I need to watch the second one.
I'm going to keep it a secret then.
Okay, good. So a film that you've watched more, well, we may even answer this one. You've watched more than once, and why?
So
let's pick another one, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
As I mentioned, I kind of like sci-fi. I mean, there's quite a few movies I've watched probably more times than I should, but Star Wars I probably watched a few more times than maybe I should, but I enjoyed every time. Another movie, I think it's just a great movie, is Shawshank Redemption.
That's been mentioned so many times in these interviews.
Unbelievable movie. The story. It's one of those movies you see every time. It's like, wow. So it has a great message, and I love it. And maybe the other one that I keep seeing every single time is Monty Python. I mean, I love Monty Python, and I must have watched The Holy Grail.
It's the best. It's the best Monty Python.
It's unbelievable, and I had a chance to watch it in Boston a couple of years ago. Actually, John Cleese came, and they
Oh, really?
They showed the movie, and then after the movie, they had John Cleese on stage, and they interviewed him for like an hour, and it was brilliant.
Fantastic.
So I enjoyed it a lot, and again, this movie, it doesn't matter how many times I see it.
It's always funny.
I laugh every single time. I know it by heart, and I laugh every single time.
Well, Itamar, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Welcome on board to Qlik, and we'll do more of these because I can see a lot of interesting conversations going on between me and you.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
It's a pleasure.